Today, I'm taking you through some serious drama happening in Brussels, where the leaders of Europe are at a crossroads that could really shake things up. We've got some rising tensions between Washington and the European Union, with some hefty fines and threats flying around. And don't forget about Germany making headlines with some big military upgrades and a fraud scandal that's come to light. Meanwhile, France is dealing with chaos in its museums and a wave of fake news. On top of that, Britain's healthcare system is struggling with strikes, and there's a Hollywood project stirring up confusion. But what I've got to share at the end is going to flip your thinking completely upside down. I spent a good chunk of time in one of those big-name media companies that everyone trusts, but I saw firsthand how they'd bury stories that didn't fit the narrative they wanted to push. I watched the truth get twisted until it snapped, so I decided I was done with that. I left my comfy job, and now I'm here for you, with no filters and no corporate folks pulling the strings. Before we dive deeper, do me a favor and hit that like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. If you believe in what I'm doing, if you appreciate independent reporting that actually checks facts before sharing them, think about becoming a supporter. This work isn't easy without a massive corporation backing us, but with your help, we can keep uncovering the truth. So let's get into what's really going down in Brussels. Ursula von der Leyen, who heads up the European Commission, just turned up the heat dramatically. As we get closer to Thursday, December 18th, all 27 leaders of the European Union are coming together for what could be one of the most important summits in years. Von der Leyen is not holding back. She's emphasizing that the talks around frozen Russian assets are crucial for Europe's safety and independence. This is about more than just money. It's about whether Europe can stand united or if it's going to break apart under pressure. And here's where it gets really intriguing. She referred to our current world as a place full of predators. Just think about that for a second. There's quite a lot happening on the European front, and I have to say, it's kind of a tangled web. So a key figure is raising some serious alarms about a new international order that's forming, especially after how Washington has decided to change its approach to Europe. Now, Belgium, where a lot of these frozen assets are parked, is a bit skeptical. They're not too sure that the risks will be shared fairly among all the EU countries. They want some solid guarantees, and without those, this whole plan might just crumble. But wait, there's more on EU leaders' minds. They're also dealing with a gigantic issue on the table, a free trade agreement with a South American group known as Mercosur. To get this agreement through, they need what's called a qualified majority. This means at least 15 countries that make up 65% of the EU population need to give a thumbs up. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's the kicker. Several big players, with France at the forefront, are fiercely opposing it. The reason? Back home, the mood is pretty grim. French folks are understandably upset, and the government is very aware of that. So France is trying to gather support to push the vote to next year, hoping to buy some time and dodge a political nightmare. Italy is a key player in all of this. France needs Italy's support to form a blocking minority, which is basically a way to put the brakes on the Mercosur deal. However, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni isn't showing her hand just yet. She's got her doubts about the deal's future, but she's staying non-committal for now. So, we've got von der Leyen and the EU leaders facing two incredibly tough questions, and we'll find out the results very soon. The summit tomorrow is going to show the world whether Europe can stick together or if the fissures are just too wide to mend. It's a real turning point, and everyone is watching intently. But let's not overlook something important. If Europe struggles at this juncture and can't find a common ground on these significant issues, it raises questions about how well they'll handle the even bigger crises looming on the horizon. Now, let's pivot a bit to the escalating tension between Washington and Brussels. Things are getting pretty heated. After the EU hit Elon Musk's platform X with a hefty fine, the US government isn't holding back. They're making it clear that retaliation might be on the table. The Trump administration is signaling that if American service, so it turns out that the European Union is placing some pretty strict rules on providers, and that could lead to some serious consequences. Here's the kicker. European companies can pretty much do what they want in the United States without too much hassle. But American companies, they're facing what the folks in Washington are calling discriminatory and harassing tactics. The U.S. Trade Representative's office didn't hold back, claiming that the EU and some of its member states are unfairly targeting Elon Musk's platform. They made it clear that the United States is ready to use every tool in the toolbox to combat these tough conditions for American service providers. President Trump jumped in too, calling the actions against Musk's platform nasty, and he strongly warned Europe to watch its step. That's not exactly polite language. You could easily call that a threat, but Europe isn't rolling over. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz fired back, pointing out that if European companies have to follow US laws when they operate in America, then American companies should respect the rules in Europe. From a legal perspective, he's got a point. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, who owns X and runs Tesla, isn't taking the sanctions lying down. He's gone as far as to demand the complete dissolution of the European Union and the European Commission. Can you imagine that? One of the richest and most influential people in the world wanting to tear down an entire political bloc. The tension is ramping up fast, and honestly, it's anyone's guess how this will all play out. Are we heading towards trade wars? Will American companies start leaving European markets? Could Europe respond with even tougher measures? The uncertainty is the scariest part. When major economies start throwing threats around, the effects ripple out. Markets react, supply chains get disrupted, and it's regular folks like you and me who end up footing the bill. Keep an eye on this situation because whatever happens next could really change the game for relations across the Atlantic for many years to come. Over in Germany, they're not just watching from the sidelines. They're gearing up for the challenges they acknowledge are on the way. They've just introduced a new helicopter named the Sea Tiger, aimed at strengthening their naval forces. The defense minister, Boris Pistorius, according to recent polls, isn't quiet about all this either. Germany is making some big moves these days, and honestly, it's hard to ignore their growing military ambitions. The country's most popular politician recently took a close look at their latest military aircraft, which is pretty impressive. This new state-of-the-art gear is super important for the German forces, particularly the Navy. It's not just an upgrade. It brings in a whole new range of capabilities for protecting Germany and its allies. They've introduced the Sea Tiger to replace older helicopters, and this new bird can do some serious stuff. We're talking about detecting and engaging submarines, tackling airborne threats, launching torpedoes, and firing anti-ship missiles. Germany's made it quite clear they're stepping up their military game. This isn't just a casual change. When a country like Germany, which has always been a bit cautious about military show-offs, starts unveiling new offensive and defensive tech with so much excitement, their strategy has definitely shifted. Are they gearing up for possible conflicts? Or maybe they're feeling the heat from NATO allies and are unsure about how dependable American security guarantees will be in the future. Most likely, it's a mix of everything. But military modernization isn't all that's happening in Germany. There's also a curious domestic story that's making waves right now. So, if someone wants to settle in Germany permanently, they have to show they can speak the language, a pretty standard requirement. But it turns out some people try to cheat the system by using fake documents or even hiring others to take the exams in their place. Recently, the police stumbled upon a particularly bold scam that's got everyone talking. In this case, a 27-year-old German man pretended to be a 38-year-old Afghan during a language exam. The Afghan had paid this guy to take the test using a fake passport to get a residence permit, but the police were sharp this time and caught on to the scheme. Turns out this German guy had been taking language exams all around the country under different fake names. This whole incident brings to light a worrying issue with people cheating to get their language certificates, and it raises some uncomfortable questions about how many other incidents have slipped through unnoticed. How reliable are these testing systems really? And it makes you wonder about the pressures people feel that push them to risk criminal charges just to pass a simple language exam. Now let's shift gears and take a look at France, where one of the most visited museums in the world, the Louvre, is. So the Louvre in Paris didn't open its doors today because of an ongoing staff strike. The workers are seriously frustrated with their working conditions and pay. This protest kicked off back on December 15th, and unions are saying that the staff is overworked. They're calling for more hires, better wages, and a complete rethink of how the museum spends its money. Things got even tenser with some criticism aimed at the museum's director. You might remember back in October when around 88 million euros worth of jewelry got stolen from the Louvre. Today, she's supposed to explain this mess to the French Senate. And those jewels? Still missing, which isn't too shocking at this point, especially since President Emmanuel Macron promised they'd be found soon. Meanwhile, French farmers are out protesting all across the country, adding to this general vibe of unrest and dissatisfaction spreading throughout France. But there's even more drama involving Macron himself, and it's about fake news and foreign interference. He's pretty furious right now. A fake story popped up on Facebook around December 10th, claiming there was a government coup happening in France. This wild claim went viral, racking up 13 million views right when the agricultural crisis was hitting hard. Macron mentioned he even got a message from a fellow African leader asking if he was okay because of that crazy post. The Élysée Palace hasn't figured out where the video came from or who made it yet. What's really worrying Macron is the fear of manipulation and foreign meddling in the upcoming municipal elections in March next year and the presidential elections in 2027. That's what's really keeping him up at night. When he asked Facebook to take down that shocking fake post, their response was basically, "This doesn't break our rules." Nothing serious went down. Now, Macron is really fired up about this, saying that these people don't care about us. They're putting us in danger. It looks like France might take some action against Facebook soon. Just think about that for a moment. A sitting president of a major Western democracy openly accusing a tech giant of endangering his country and hinting at regulatory moves. And over in Britain, junior doctors are making waves across England too. This morning kicked off a 5-day strike focused on pay and working conditions, making it the 14th strike since March 2023. The timing is interesting as it coincides with what everyone is calling a super flu. People have some strong opinions about this flu. Experts are finally speaking up more freely these days. Some folks think British authorities are maybe overstating the threat, possibly to distract us from what's really going on with these strikes. Others, of course, are raising the alarm with their usual flair. The British Health Minister has brushed off the British Medical Association's calls for better pay, accusing the union of showing a shocking disregard for patient safety. If he really cared, you'd think he'd meet the demands halfway, but nobody seems to be thinking that way or planning to act. On a similar note, Britain, like Germany, is gearing up for challenges and is pushing for stronger preparedness measures. Air Marshal Richard Knighton, the Chief of Defense Staff, has made a bold statement. The country needs more people ready to defend their homeland. He also mentioned that we need more high school and university graduates to step into the defense industry. Now, here's where it gets a bit interesting. The British Air Marshal expressed a bit of his own struggle, claiming he's in a situation none of his predecessors faced. He feels it's tougher for him than anyone who came before him in these challenging times. Sounds a bit dramatic, right? But setting that aside, there's a really intriguing development coming out of Hollywood. A biographical film about George Floyd is in the works, aptly titled Daddy Changed the World. His family has given the green light, and it's currently in the development phase. The film aims to highlight George's life, showing him as a hero of our time. It will touch on the tragic events of 2020, but also really emphasize his human story and legacy. That's the polished narrative they're aiming for. While there's no solid confirmation that Daddy Changed the World is being backed by the Democratic Party in the United States, official announcements have been mentioning private producers and studios. Europe is really at a turning point right now, facing some tough decisions. It's all about those frozen Russian assets and trade deals that could either bring everyone together or show just how divided they really are. And let me tell you, the relationship between Europe and the US is feeling the pressure with all sorts of threats flying around, especially about tech regulations. Over in Germany and Britain, the leaders are getting their people ready for some difficult times ahead, while France is juggling strikes, rumors, and some serious public unrest all at once. Meanwhile, Hollywood's busy trying to craft narratives around these intense political happenings. Every one of these situations is part of a bigger picture. The old ways are crumbling, new power dynamics are coming into play, and institutions everywhere are scrambling to keep up or just survive. It's a wild ride, and it's honestly hard to believe how quickly everything is shifting. If you find what I'm sharing valuable, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything that's unfolding. I really appreciate anyone who believes in independent journalism that takes the time to dig deep and verify facts before telling the story. Your support is what keeps this channel running. As we wrap up, let me have a quick heart-to-heart with you. These days, navigating through news feels like walking through a minefield of half-truths and crafted narratives. Every single day, my team and I put in hours sifting through red tape and conflicting information just to make sure that when I speak into this mic, I'm giving you the straight facts. Fact-checking is tough and often goes unappreciated, but it's crucial to protect ourselves from the flood of misinformation that tries to keep us apart. If you value this commitment to truth, especially after I fought to break free from the corporate media world, please take a moment to give that like button a tap and subscribe. And if you're in a position to help, I'd be so grateful if you considered sponsoring our work. Your support makes all the difference. Your support truly keeps this channel alive. It's what helps me run things without any corporate strings attached, focusing only on you. Honestly, it means a lot more to me than I can explain.